is Reverend Arthur Suggs, the pastor of the First Congregational Church of Binghamton. Amongst his many academic achievements, he has earned 2 physics degrees from Purdue University, a doctoral degree in theological studies from San Francisco Theological Seminary, and a divinity degree from Princeton Theological Seminary. Mr. Suggs sits on the board of the United Muslim Christian Forum and was a guest speaker at the first annual UMCF celebration of the birth of Jesus, Son of Mary. Reverend Suggs.
Good afternoon. I want to thank you from the bottom of my heart for inviting me back. This event in particular, and events such as this, where we bring together different cultures, different religions, are of supreme importance to me. And I will tell you why in a moment. First, may what I say be pleasing to God and of value to you. I'd like to begin with a short poem by William Wordsworth, dated 1798. I have felt a presence that disturbs me with joy, of elevated thoughts, a sense sublime of something far more deeply interfused, whose dwelling is the light of setting suns, and the round ocean, and the living air, and the blue sky, and the mind of man. A motion and a spirit that impels all thinking things, all objects of all thought, and rolls through all things. Even though he never uses the word, I believe that he's talking about God, Allah, divinity, holiness, sacredness. For the speakers, I was provided with a sheet that had some talking points on it, probably wanting to corral me in a little bit as to what I would talk about today. And in it has a number of quotes from the Holy Quran, from the Old Testament, from the New Testament. And I'd like to draw your attention to just a couple of these. Two from the Holy Quran. The same religion has he established for you as that which he enjoined on Noah, that which we have sent by inspiration to thee, and that which we enjoined on Abraham, Moses, and Jesus. And then here's the part I'd like to draw your attention to. Namely, that ye should remain steadfast in religion, and make no divisions therein. No divisions. If only Christians would pay attention to that. And then later, say, he is Allah, the one and only, Allah, the eternal, absolute. He begets not, nor is he begotten, and there is none like unto him. And how is it that we can put together those two thoughts? The oneness of God, the oneness of all that God has made, and all of those divisions. Thousands upon thousands of ways in which humanity divides itself and then uses those divisions to harm one another. How do we put those two thoughts together? How can it be that we've got oneness insofar as we are able to grasp it in our mind and all of these divisions? I have been interested in interfaith dialogue since childhood, before I ever even heard that phrase. Ever since I was in a Christian Sunday school, and I was taught by people who I admired, who were my elders, parents, teachers, and I was taught that those who would be saved would only be people like me. White, Protestant, you know the story. And as a little boy, I had this drummed into me that everybody else wasn't going to be as lucky as I was. And at that tender age, even though I couldn't articulate it, I knew I had a problem, because I wanted to believe what I had been taught, but I didn't. I had doubts. I thought that they must be mistaken, that God would never do that. And then in adulthood, I began learning about theology, and then also theologies, the plural, where theology was different from one another, where they were the same, and why those differences oftentimes were extremely instructive to learn what it is that you believe in your own heart and mind. And then I became interested in peace, and saw the way in which what people believed, philosophically or religiously, was linked oftentimes to war. But what can one person do about such things? And thus I also felt despair, because it seemed such a hopeless enterprise to promote peace in this world with so many divisions. And then I came across a quote. And actually, I think I quoted this for you a year ago. And without apology, I will say it again. From Hans Küng, the Catholic German theologian. And he said, there can be no peace between nations until there is peace between religions. And there can be no peace between religions without dialogue. I find that phrase, the logic of that phrase, to be flawless. I can find no error in it. I think it is completely true that there will be no peace between nations until there is peace between religions. And how can there be peace between religions without dialogue? A flawless statement, except it doesn't go quite far enough. And so what I would like to do is to take it 2 steps farther in the time that I have remaining. The next step I would add is that there can be no real dialogue without humility. Have you ever had a conversation with somebody who really wasn't humble? It's more of a monologue. It's more of a lecture. It's more like telling you what's what. It's not a dialogue without humility. And then the second step I would add to what Hans Küng began is that nothing engenders humility. Nothing nurtures humility more than thoughts and feelings about God. The more I try to apprehend what divinity is, the more I try to tell you what Allah means to me, the more humble it makes me. And I hope it does for you as well, because I am trying with my finiteness to apprehend the infinite. And the more successful at that I am, the more my finitude is apparent to me, the more in which I realize that I don't have all the answers. That leads to humility, which in turn leads to real dialogue where we can learn from one another, which leads to peace between religions, which leads to peace in the world. And so therefore, let me say a few things about God. Consider these some of my pearls that I am offering to you. These are some of the beautiful things that I have come across in my study of the divine through my limited years. I would like to offer you a few metaphors where I talk about one thing and have it serve as a bridge to something bigger that's more difficult to articulate. Paul Tillich referred to God as the ground of our being. I read that decades ago from the early part, a Christian theologian from the early part of the century. And I remembered when I first came across that, being in grade school, and like 3rd grade, 2nd grade, something like that, and where as a little kid, everybody in class was